Faith to the Faithless has been in existence since 2016, so it's not been very long. But in that time, it's had an enormous impact. It was established by Alia Salim and Imtiaz Shams, and I don't think you can overstate it. It's actually part of Humanist UK now, and I believe it's getting worldwide recognition. So I'd like to invite or introduce you to Imtiaz Shams, who's very kindly agreed to this interview all the way from New York, or New York State rather. I'd like to welcome him. Welcome, Imtiaz, and welcome to the show, as it were.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me, can you give us some idea of the circumstances that led to the foundation of Faith to the Faithless?
Yeah, I think it was pretty simple. So prior to Faith to Faithless, there was the ex-Muslim communities. I was an ex-Muslim. I didn't know what that even meant. You know, when you leave, you never come across someone like yourself, and you think you're alone, and you go through that alone. And in my case, I latched on to internet and internet communities like on Reddit, the ex-Muslim subreddit. But, you know, at some point, we're all human beings. We're social animals. We've evolved to get to know each other and spend time in communities. And so when you're alone, either you're feeling really down or you look for others. And that's what I did. And I found lots of others all over the world, set up some of the communities in London, Australia, Midlands, was involved with some of my friends who set up communities in America and Canada. And that was on a very grassroots level. You know, it's very Fight Club. You had to know someone who knew someone, and vetting processes. And at some point I started realizing that I wanted to, it wasn't fair that people didn't know about us, and it wasn't fair that social services treated us badly, even in countries where you'd expect some secular understanding of social services. Even in the UK, you know, sometimes they would say you need to go back to your religion. It's a real thing. It sounds crazy, but that's literally true. It's happened to so many.
Hang on, you actually said that social services suggested you go back to your religion?
Not me specifically, but there's been lots and lots and lots of cases of that. I'll give you one very, very good example of this. There was a 14-year-old girl that contacted us, and we don't deal with anyone under 18, but saying that, and we passed her on to a child support charity. It's a hotline. She called them up and they said, it sounds like the volunteer said, sounds like your issues are to do with you leaving religion. Why don't you go back? And we've also seen schools do the same thing, say, why don't you go back to your faith? Your family are stressed about it, even in abusive situations. That's changing. And part of the reason that's changing is the work Faith to Faithless is doing. But at the time, it was absolutely atrocious. We were just like, why does no one know exist? And blah, blah. I then also started meeting lots of apostates in general, people who leave religion, you know, and particularly ex-Hasidic Jewish people I got along with, because they're very, very conservative usually, the kind of relationships they come out of. And I was talking to some of my friends in that community, and I was just thinking they have the same problems as we do. They're slightly different, yeah, but they're very similar. So Faith to Faithless was born out of that commonality, and it was this idea that actually it's not just about ex-Muslims; it is about apostasy, and that's quite useful because every single apostate faith has, like ex-Muslim or ex-Jehovah's Witness or ex-whatever, has certain claims that religion makes in order to put them down. So they'll say, if you're leaving Islam, you're Islamophobic or you're hateful or this and that. If you're ex-Hasidic Jewish, you're part of the anti-Semitic narrative. If you're ex-Jehovah's Witness, you're against the church, you're apostate, you're dirty, da da da. But if you're together, what can they say? Because they there's so many issues across so many of these religions and cults. So Faith to Faithless was born out of that. We were running independently for a while. I was sort of filming panels that we were running in universities, but eventually I realized I can't scale it without support or raising lots of money. And so we made the choice to integrate it with Humanists UK. Best decision we made, because, you know, I can do YouTube videos with panels and all that, but Humanists UK is about well-governed, you know, institutional change, I would say. And I don't have that experience. So what's happened since is, yes, they've kept up the activities. They've even created peer support groups, but they've also gone after government and social services and things like that. So we train institutions all over the UK in how to do how to recognize apostasy and how to do better. And honestly, it's been such a change. It's amazing what's happened over the last few years, that really these institutions are changing. And I love that. And I love to see that.
Yes, I've even seen you on the BBC being interviewed, which is remarkable for the BBC of all people to actually get involved. But you're interested in, you mentioned Hasidic Jewish people. I lived in a Hasidic Jewish community. I'm not Jewish, but it was quite interesting. Our immediate neighbours were, I suppose you call them anglicised Jewish people. They were people that we got on with, became friends with. But the rest of the community was Hasidic. And the interesting thing was that whereas I was included in that community, the Hasidic community, especially on Saturdays, I was very popular then, but our immediate neighbours were completely rejected. They were completely excluded from anything that they were involved with.
Yeah. And it's often the case, actually, because they would be a threat because they're closer to the lifestyle in some ways, or at least the cultural heritage. Yeah. They're a threat to the young people and the older people in leaving, and it happens all the time. I remember I once met a guy at a party who was an atheist, but if you looked at him, you would think he's the most conservative Hasidic Jews you've ever met. And he was blogging about being a secret in the closet Hasidic Jewish person, ex-Hasidic Jewish person. And I said to him, "Why don't you leave? Like, he's like, I have 7 children, and this is very common. They have large families." Partly pressure, partly cultural. And he said, I'm pushing for my daughters to have science education. If I leave, they're not going to have that. So, the sacrifice he had to make in living a dishonest life to himself in order to protect his children is amazing. And it shows you how strongly protective these communities are against people who are outside threats. Forget about them not even integrating with those kind of people who are more secular Jewish, but they sue children, they sue the parents who leave. They sue them to take their kids away. There are flyers all over some of these communities saying, we need to donate and raise £1 million because they're taking our golden children away, and they sue them constantly in order to take their kids away. And it's really heartbreaking when you see these men. Often they're men, actually, because the women often get to keep the kids, but often they're men who don't have their children for years, and it's heartbreaking.
That sounds absolutely horrendous. I don't know how they can even do that, but in different countries you have different customs. So I suppose there are examples when
it's the British. It's actually the UK that this happens in. These leaflets are in the UK. These court cases are in the UK. These are ex-Hasidic Jewish people I know in the UK, men.
Oh, that's horrendous. I had no idea about that. But tell me, it's one thing not to be... Well, let me ask you again. Was it particularly traumatic for you when you became a humanist? I mean, how did you even find out about humanism? This is really interesting.
It's really funny. Andrew Kopf, I said this to him, but I think he'll laugh if I say this publicly.
Go on, tell it.
I didn't know what humanism was, actually. Like, even when I started speaking to Humanists UK, I wasn't really like an identified humanist. And this is the constant thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Humanists are humanists without knowing they're humanists half the time, right? Yeah. I'm on the board. I'm a trustee now of Humanists UK. I've been for about 6 years now. And it's the most common thing that we think about is, why are there so many people who are humanists who don't label? And I was one of them. And, I think obviously just by how that integration happened with Faithless, I got to really understand the ethos, and I got to understand the language of humanism. One of the best things that I think has happened for Humanists UK from Faithless is we've brought all of this apostasy who are young, often diverse, into that fold of volunteers. And so their events now tend to have more types of people. It's really, you can see it, and even on the board of Humanists UK, there's Hamza, who's another ex-Muslim. So, you're starting to see a little bit of that. But you speak to all of these ex-Muslims or ex-Jehovah's Witnesses or ex-Jews, they don't know what humanism is until they know what humanism is. And it takes a while. That time is getting shorter, though, because Faithless is in Humanists UK, and our events tend to have this humanist angle to them as well, or humanist people. They're exposed to humanism quicker. So I think there's a really nice, it's a really nice overlap, isn't it, between the two organizations?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. But you have to find out what in your time, you had to find out what humanism was first. So how did you do that? I mean, was it something someone said? I'll give an example. I was 58 years. I've been an atheist since I was about 14.
Yeah.
But I was 58 years old before I ever heard of humanism, and my son
Oh,
told
it's
me.
so interesting. That's so interesting, and I wish that wasn't the case, right? I think I learned about humanism because Humanists UK was within the network of apostasy stuff that I've been in, because there's some people I met through some other things, but
Yeah.
I didn't know what a humanist was. I didn't quite get it. I understood it conceptually, but I think I had a bit of fun as a pastafarian actually for a while. Like you just have a bit of fun, but actually, like theological groundwork, I think that happened after I had some really interesting conversations with humanists and realizing, wait a minute, these people are just as sciencey as I am. They care about rationalism. And then that made sense to me. But I also didn't like labels. And this is the thing about apostates. We're labeled our whole life as a religion. So when we leave, there's a tendency to label ourselves and also a fear of it. So the humanist label is also scary, because unless you know what it is and you understand that it's a self-policing label, it's a scary thing, because you're like, am I joining another religion? So a lot of us don't go into anything like that or any labels for a long while. And with me, I think it took a while for that. I called myself agnostic atheist for the longest time. That was my go-to, because it doesn't mean anything really, like in terms of philosophy or whatever. Humanism took a while for me to take on. Yeah.
I think agnostic atheist is pretty good, actually, because
it's a smooth one.
I mean, if the evidence was there that there was a God, I'm sure you'd convert just as much as I would. It's just the evidence isn't there.
I'd convert, or I'd be scared of the God, but
one or the other. Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
So, how did your family react? I mean, you must have, when you told them that you were non-religious, and then at some point later, you must have told them that you were humanist.
Yeah, well, the humanist conversations never happened. I mean, I am on the board of Humanists UK, so there's probably some understanding of that, but I don't even think we know what humanism means, really, to be honest. It's not really a thing that comes up. We know atheist. Atheist is like a dirty word, It's not really a word we use, though, because we don't talk about people who leave. It never happens. Of course, it never happens, right? In my case, I was in a really catch-22, because I was doing all of this underground work with the grassroots ex-Muslim communities, and Faithless happened afterwards, actually, after my family found out. But I was doing all this work, and I was doing media even at the time, secretly, with a secret name. And I just thought it wasn't fair that all these ex-Muslims I'm helping them come out, and I'm giving them advice on that. And yet I'm here secretly in the, so I didn't think that was fair. So I realized I had to tell my family. It didn't go down very well in the beginning. I think, it's a lot for my family to take. The oldest son, an understanding of the world. If that breaks, it's traumatizing, and it comes out in not very nice ways, I think. It's taken a very, very long time and when I say ups and down, I mean, sometimes it was going well, and then suddenly 3 years later, it went back to -2, so it did that a lot. But in recent times, things have really healed. And what's really funny is I think that the world is changing in order for my family to have healed a little bit. Like, we literally had to change the entire world and how they thought about ex-Muslims for this to happen. And I'll give you an example of this. There was really no social communities for ex-Muslims at all. There was not many public personalities that were not really politicized. Now you get just TikTokers, you get YouTubers who are just talking about softer stuff. They're not talking about politics. They're talking about family and their story. So that had to happen for that conversation to be slightly normalized. It's unfortunate, of course, but it's made things a little bit better. But it's also created problems, like, in the wider community, people are more aware of ex-Muslims, so they're more afraid of the kids leaving, and it just gets very complicated.
But it's not only Muslims, is it? I mean, Faith of the Faithless offers a service to a whole range of different faiths, including Christianity, and the Jewish faith, but also the non-Abrahamic faiths and other cults as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, in your experience, what is Faith to Faithless network? What does it mostly consist of?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's both centralized and decentralized at the same time. So we have a centralized core of people. Now we even have staff members, but we have a centralized core. We also have a lot of pull from the Humanist UK core team as well. So where we don't have resourcing internally, Humanist UK is constantly contributing people. And that's really, you need professionals in these organizations. But beyond that, we have the volunteers, and there's this kind of core set of volunteers and a wider set of loose volunteers. The core set of volunteers are constantly doing work to set up things and and then the wider set of volunteers are managing one-off events and things like that. But they're also there if, let's say, there's a ex-Jehovah's Witness who comes in who really needs this or whatever it is. We know that Terry or Steve can connect them to an ex-Jehovah's Witness community and say, I know this person who lives near you. So it's both formalized and it's also informal. Like if a problem comes up, we'll go to the wider community and say, here's what we have. You should talk to this person. And it's nice because at the cutting edge of things, people need soft help. They need to be connected. But at the centralized side, you can only do institutional work if you centralize it, so it's both. As an example, the peer support group where we sit together, maybe 9 of us, talk about things that have gone through our lives, maybe have a theme like today's relationships, tomorrow is family. These are run by usually trained pastoral carers or even therapists, but they're managed by volunteers, if that makes sense. So it's that soft and hard, centralized, decentralized. We've tried to build it like that because apostates come from communities that are decentralized, right? So centralization, too much centralization is a bit scary for them, I think, sometimes.
So how do these people actually find out about you? How do they find out about you in the first place? What's the normal route?
That used to that answer has changed. So it used to be that it would be through the other grassroots communities that already exist, the ex-Muslim groups that I've set up, or the ex-Jehovah's Witnesses that my friends set up, who are also part of Faithless. So there's overlaps. So Gesha is the ex-ultra-Orthodox Jewish community set up by Emily. They pass people on to Faithless for events sometimes or for help. Same thing with the Jehovah's Witnesses and ex-Muslims. Now, though, it's also online. Like the YouTube videos that I did even 5-6 years ago have almost 1 million views across them, right? So people watch the Jehovah's Witnesses videos or the thing, and then they Google us and they go, oh, this is a thing. And then they come to us that way. A third and growing part is services sometimes in schools and things like that come to us because we've trained them. And so they've got problems. They come to us saying, I've got this person, they've got this challenge, and we work with them. So I love that we're getting services come to us as well. That's really, really important for credibility. But the basis thing is still community. We still have the community outreach, and that works a lot. The YouTube videos second, and then the services is third.
You must be thinking then that this must be just the tip of the iceberg. Whatever you're getting now, it must be a tiny, tiny proportion of the total people who might need your services. That's
what's scary, right? Because we deal with a lot of people. So if you imagine, I make the argument that in the UK, if you there's probably about 110,000 ex-Muslims if you just do the multiplication of the number of Muslims in there and then the understood number of apostasy in America, because they have better figures in America. In America, there's I think something like 780,000 ex-Muslims is what was the figure we were working out. In the Middle East, can you imagine how many millions of ex-Muslims there are? Because Saudi Arabia, I have lots and lots of friends who are ex-Muslims in Saudi Arabia and leaving, and all of them have a number of friends who are atheists in Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia is probably one of the largest countries of atheists that I know of, because it's got a large population of people who are also starting to leave Islam. So, it's a global thing. And this is ex-Muslim. We're not talking about Christians. We're not talking about evangelicals. We're not, so it is a worldwide. I always say that it is the biggest problem that no one's heard of, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. It does.
Like LGBTQ, thankfully, we're in a point in the world where there's a fight, right? There's still a fight, but there's a fight about it where you're either on one side or the other, right? With apostasy, people just still don't really know about it. And yet it is a percentage of the religious population that go through this stuff.
Coming back to Saudi Arabia, just very briefly, I think I read somewhere that in Saudi Arabia, a couple of years ago, it was made against the law, illegal, punishable by a prison sentence to declare yourself an atheist.
Oh, no, it's been to the death sentence for a while.
Death sentence.
Oh, yeah, it's been the death sentence for a while.
So some of the people you're dealing with are living in fear, presumably.
Oh yeah, but the funniest thing is it's not funny, but the crazy thing is it's not just the government you're afraid of. So I'm actually there's someone I'm dealing with right now who's in Saudi Arabia. Their family are not going to really mess them up. Their family are they wouldn't be happy with it, of course, and they would probably try to control them, but they wouldn't hurt them physically. But they're worried about the wider community. They're worried about the government. So there's different layers of control in Saudi Arabia. Often it's your family to start with, then the community, and then the government. Uh, with the government, it's more like if you do a YouTube channel, or if someone finds out, then and the government decides to come after you, or then you're in trouble. But the community is where even rumors and gossip can be enough for you to be, for you to be controlled and forced marriage and all that stuff.
Because it struck me that when you've got such draconian punishments, that it's a sign of a religion's weakness, not its strength, if they have to rely on that. Because presumably the authorities are worried about a landslide of people leaving their faith if they don't punish them, if they don't threaten them.
Yes, and that's absolutely true. And that's what happens. I don't know if I would say it's a sign of weakness in the sense that it works. If you create enough levels of control, people don't even know that they can leave. Like this is what imagine how powerful it is. Even in the United Kingdom, where we have a reasonably open education system, I didn't know you could leave it because of how powerful Saudi Arabia's work is. Like Saudi Arabia was funding a lot of the masjids and the mosques in the UK, or Saudi and Gulf countries, in terms of the books that they can have and blah, 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 blah. So you end up with this like exported form of Islam, which is highly controlling. And it works. Control does work. It creates strength. Jehovah's Witnesses, if you leave, Jehovah's Witnesses apostates are often not apostates out of choice. They're kicked out. They don't leave it. What happens is maybe you've done something to piss them off, or maybe if you're a Jehovah's Witness and your child leaves and they get turned away, if you have a contact with that child, you are also an apostate. All right.
Grief.
So imagine in that church, it maintains people that it has the most control on, right? So I would say control works. It just works. So it is a form of strength for these people that they can have that kind of control. I think, however, it's hard for human beings to be controlled when there's a lot of information going around. They can travel, things like that. And that's why the slingshot back is happening. I do think that Muslims are becoming a lot more engaged with other forms of thinking.
I don't want to concentrate too much on Islam because there's a much wider range here.
Absolutely.
But one question I would like to ask is apostasy viewed differently with different types of Islam? There must be 4 or 5 different kinds of Islam. But Shiites more sensitive about that than Sunnis, or
it's a very good question. And actually I can take it one step further. Apostasy is viewed differently for different religions. Some of them have more or less different types of control. They have different ways of controlling. Like, some of them will control by completely ostracizing you from your close family. Some of them will have death threats within the theological construct, but not in your day-to-day lived existence, etc. Some of them will try to take your kids away. But within Islam, I have to be honest, it runs deep. The apostasy stuff runs very, very, very deep. So if you've ignored the threats to life, which is a bit more complicated conversation, Shia ex-Muslims have just as much, sometimes even worse than Sunnis. Like I don't know, I don't have enough of an understanding of why, but it's not that, Sufi, which is always seen as the more hippie liberal, it really is not. I know Sufi people who from Sufi traditions who are worse off than me as a Sunni in terms of how they're treated. It's very, very case by case with this stuff. If you have a loving family who really deeply love you and you leave, it's slightly harder for them to ostracize you than maybe someone who isn't, right? Or if your external family is connected to your life, But this is also, by the way, true for other religions. If you're an evangelical Christian, if you live in a community that's very evangelical and you leave, you'll be ostracized differently to if you're evangelical Christian and you converted yourself or whatever,
Yeah, I see. So How fast has Faith to the Faithless grown? I mean, in the last 5 years, it's not very long.
No, it's not. I would say,
Is it worldwide?
well, we get people interested in what we're doing worldwide. We get asks for help worldwide. However, because of Humanist UK being UK focused, we tend to focus on the UK. The good news is that there are organizations all over the world now in terms of like different specific apostasy things. There's nothing really like Faith to Faithless, which is truly cross religion, except for our Freedom from Religion Foundation in America. But they're also America focused, and they're very good, but they're America focused. So, we're more international than any other, I would say. We also have the YouTube. So the YouTube videos are absolutely worldwide. You get comments from Jehovah's Witnesses in the middle of, I've had Polish Jehovah's Witnesses contact me, ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. I've had Muslims from Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, everywhere, So the internet has been a way for us to express what we do everywhere. But as a Humanist UK organization, we have to focus on the UK on the institutional side. And that's what we've done. And I think it's been nice. It's also interesting because as we work in the UK, we're creating a model of what good apostasy work could look like. So the idea would be then maybe to export it to other countries, like maybe some of the Nordic countries might want to have Faith to Faithless train their organizations. And that could be something we could do, maybe through Humanist International. Yeah.
Just to be clear, what service exactly does Faith to the Faithless provide? Is it a sympathetic line on the phone, or is it a safe house? I mean, what exactly do you do?
Yeah, the line on the phone is something we've talked about for a while. Without giving too much away, there's some really interesting stuff happening on that side. The actual first thing we did is a training program. So Teddy Prout, who left just recently, he was absolutely instrumental in this. He's an ex-teacher, all that kind of stuff. So it's about training cops and therapists and social workers. What is apostasy? What does it look like? What does an ex-Jehovah's Witness go through? What does an ex-Muslim go through? And then helping them see that this is, because initially they go into it and say, I've never heard about this. And then when they think about it, they think, I did have a case like that. Oh, maybe that could have been apostasy. Because they they often bucket the cases into different things. So it might be, if it's a female ex-Muslim, they might put it into the women's violence area, but not the apostasy bucket where it can be, right? So the training is really about that, about sort of getting better metrics in, about getting them to be aware about apostasy. Then we also have a service around asylum seekers who are wanting to stay in the UK because they're fleeing a dangerous country. And that's been a very successful program, but we don't advertise it very far and wide because it's a resource intensive. And we also have the peer support groups, like I said, which is people sitting down and talking about their issues. It is one of the most important things we do, actually, because it really helps unload what's in your brain. We also do socials. We used to do it more before the pandemic, but we'd go to so there was a very funny one where we go to the British Museum and Steve, who used to give tours for Jehovah's Witnesses as a religious person, now gives equivalent tours for apostates as an ex-Jehovah's Witness. Really, really fantastic tours he used to give.
Is this the tours in the Natural History Museum? If it is, I've been in them.
Natural History Museum. Yeah, Steve runs them. Really, and it's really interesting because he can look at an artifact and say, here's what the Jehovah's Witness used to say about them, but here's what I understand the Muslims say about it, but this is what the scientists say about it. And it's quite archaeologists, and it's really interesting,
So is there any other way? I mean, I'm from a background that naturally sort of thinks in terms of leaflets or booklets or whatever.
Yeah.
And Humanistically Speaking is a magazine that relies on that kind of thing. I mean, has any thought been given to leaflets about Faith to the Faithless and what people should do if they feel that they need that sort of service?
Yeah.
It's really another way of saying, what can we do to help?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the biggest things is that everyone kind of knows an apostate, even if they haven't thought about it. You can go through your life and think about the people you know in your close and wider circle, and you probably know someone who's been through something like that. And it's a very difficult thing to get out of some people because it's very private and scary and all that. So one of the biggest things I say is know that we exist, know how you can get in touch with us, and try to feel out in your community who might need that kind of help. I think another thing is humanist groups, which are very distributed, are fantastic places for this, because I've had to, you imagine in some of the cities that humanist groups are, the age diversity is somewhat limited, right? But actually, I've seen so many times apostates who start to join these groups because it's a place for them to be, and the groups often take them in very, very warmly, right? I know a number of asylum seekers who had this kind of support, right? So, and I've gone to them and I've seen, like, two people who stick out, but everyone knows them and they know everyone, and they bring food in and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's very useful. Being, what I call apostate friendly as a humanist group is quite useful. The leafleting is very interesting because I think it works. My only issue is that it has to be done with an apostate, because they'll know what the local community will react well to, and they'll know, what could work. I would say the school speakers program for Humanists UK is fantastic for this, because every school will have apostates, absolutely, and every school will have people who are not apostates yet, but will definitely be at some point. And getting early enough, the fact that they, if you want to leave, you have places to go, that's critical. And I know this is true because I speak to the school speakers, and they've definitely had later on, like, the kids will be like telling the teacher, oh, this is something I'm going through, so that's quite a useful program. And so school speakers, but like making sure you're apostate friendly, so you're learning from us what is it that apostasy looks like, and that. So I think those are the kind of ways. It's touch points within the local community more than anything.
I remember as a celebrant, I got to know quite a lot of vicars and priests.
Yeah.
And I was quite surprised, the number of them who were, if not agnostic, they were actually atheists themselves.
Yep, absolutely. It's there's a project called the Clergy Project, isn't it? Which is focuses on that.
I didn't know that. It's called the Clergy. Well, is that under the auspices of Faithless?
No. It's in the US. It's a pretty well-known organization. They work with ex-clergy members who are atheists. Some of them are very, very senior, but they have no way out. And they have a pretty strong network of atheist clergymen.
It's fascinating.
You can Google it.
You've alluded earlier that individuals can be physically threatened by choosing to be apostates, but has faith to faith ever been threatened? Has it ever been attacked?
No, not Faith to Faithless. I think we've done quite well because we come from these religious communities, and I come from a reasonably conservative Islamic background. And the truth is, within that structure is where a lot of the violence happens. There's violence in certain Christian, in certain parts of Africa, but it's Islam that people are afraid of saying anything about sometimes, right? And so because of that knowledge, I think we've been able to structure Faith to Faithless in a way that doesn't attract that kind of attention from Islam, because it's an apostasy organization, first of all. And it's very much about, it doesn't care about the religion, actually, because there's, our view is people are leaving religion no matter what. Like, we don't have to do anything, right? They're all leaving. How do you give them a landing pad? How do you make their life easy? That's what we focus on. And I think that's kept some of that danger away. I know our videos on YouTube have attracted some bad attention for sure. There's been some personal stuff, but nothing really for Faith to Faithless, and we're very lucky for that. Yeah, we haven't got the sort of Charlie Hebdo hyper focus that they got. But they were making cartoons, so that comes with a different relationship with the sort of Islamic fundamentalism. We don't focus on that at all.
So how else can people get to know about Faith to Faithless? Can they find out through Humanist UK or? Well, yes, they can.
Yes, that's one of the best ways. So let's say if people are listening to this and watching this and they're saying, I have a skill that I want to contribute and volunteer, or they're thinking, I might know an apostate or whatever it is, getting in touch with us through Humanist UK is the best way. We have a member of staff, Greg, who's joined us. He's great to get in touch with. We have our website as well, to be honest, which is faithtoffaithless.org, I think. Check if it's still online. So it's faithtoffaithless.com, not .org. That website doesn't do a lot right now, but it has the link to Humanist UK, where there is a Faith to Faithless kind of connection. Yeah, Humanist UK is the best way to get in touch with us at this moment, I would say. We also have a somewhat active Twitter and Facebook page.
You said that people were leaving religion in droves, and they certainly are in this country, from various religions. But do you see the future as being one of a world where there is no religion? I mean, do you see Faith to Faithless as an active outsider actually working to get rid of religion, or are you there to provide support for those who simply?
Well, it's definitely the latter. If we wanted to help people leave religion, if we wanted people to leave religion, we would not structure Faith to Faithless the way it is. You know, we would have videos about theology, archaeology, paleontology, all that stuff. We don't do any of that. There's a lot of people doing that, to be honest. There's a lot of fantastic content. There's almost nothing in the area of what we do. That's the problem, right? Personally speaking, I'm really interested in theological debates, to be honest. I find them very, very fascinating.
Most humanists are.
Yeah, exactly. You know, humanists love talking about it. But at the end of the day, if you're being practical, if the issue isn't people are not leaving in droves, but if you leave in droves and your landing pad is shit, you're also not helping, right? It forces people to stay in the closet. It forces our existence to be wiped away, and that is, I would say, more dangerous than people not leaving enough religion. Because if people will always leave religion, but the biggest thing that keeps people within religion, I think, is a lack of knowledge of being able to leave it. That's the, you know, it's a mind block that's very difficult to get past. It's a sort of brainwashing almost, right? You're telling someone no one's ever left, right? That's a form of brainwashing, and that's more powerful, I'd say, than any theological argument, because humans are very biased. So we're very, very good at convincing ourselves of something that's wrong, or knowing something is wrong and still staying within it. But if you make it possible to leave, I think a lot of people who are on that fence or afraid would be public about it, and that's what we need.
Do you have any immediate, I can see where your long-term objectives are, but do you have any immediate objectives for the next year or the next 2 years?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Faith to Faithless is now kicking up a notch with our sort of service work. And I'll say this because I think I can talk about it. I'm not sure. I'll say it anyways. I mean, we've been talking about a hotline for years and years and years. And I think this is the year I think things will move on that.
I'm delighted to hear that. Yeah, I think you need that, definitely.
Oh, it is a passion project for me. Like, it's something I've really believed in myself, but I know Humanists UK have as well. It's just that logistically we've been doing so many things, right? But now I think that they're really kicking it up notch. Humanists UK has absolutely put because internal stuff that happens there with how they think about strategy has meant that because they renew that every so often. Face to Face is at one of the core of that, because it's been a success, right? So I think it's really nice that Humanists UK have decided that this is where they double down on. So we're going to see a
24/7 hotline.
I don't know if it's that, but I know it's going to be a hotline. We used to always send people to Karma Nirvana, which is an honor violence charity, and they have a hotline, fantastic hotline. But I think we need our own, right? And I think that's going to be fantastic. I know that there's conversation about really doing more videos again, because we've kind of put a lot. That's partly my fault. I used to do all the videos, and then I got a bit busy. But I know there's been conversation about doing videos again, because videos in the hotline's quite UK focused, but at the end of the day, anyone can contact us, right? And the videos are very international. So I would love Faith to Faithless to pair its UK work with easy to do things that are international, because there isn't really an international Faith to Faithless anywhere. There's no organization like that. So I'd love that to happen. But yeah, I think 2022 on is going to be very interesting for apostasy when it comes to what we're doing.
Well, I'd love to hear about that, and if it comes to light, I'd like to know about that from a humanistic speaking point of view, because we'll certainly promote that very, very strongly.
That'd be great. Yes, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'd be very happy to do that. But all this costs money, doesn't it?
Yes.
And we're talking about full-time staff. You mentioned full-time staff before. You're presumably a full-time member of staff.
I'm not. No, I've been a volunteer my whole life.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I have my own businesses and stuff. I even took on debt to actually set up Faith to Faithless at the beginning. I took on $2,000 of debt.
Oh, it's about time you started getting paid.
No. For me, Faith to Faithless needs to put all the resourcing into having sustainability, right? And this new member staff has only been possible because there's been a bit more sustainability happening. But it's a charity program, and it's very hard for it to run. Grants don't touch us, because grants say, you're either a religion or you're not religion. So because grants will only fund religion sometimes, or they will fund anything but religion, and then we just end up never getting grant funding. So everything we do is pretty much funded by humanist members. They fund us directly, or they fund us through Humanists UK.
So if any of our readers wanted to make a donation to the Faithless organization, what should they do?
So they can contact Humanists UK and do that, and that will be restricted. I think it's restricted for Faithless.
Specifically to say this is for Faithless, yeah?
Yes. That's happened multiple times. We also do campaigns for actually, Humanists UK is quite good like this. Like every year when we used to do the conference, they would make Faithless the fundraise that we do for the dinner, and that would really help us in one night raise money for maybe 6 months or something.
Yeah.
And we're very lean. We have so many volunteers. We're such a lean organization, but it's come to the point we do need like a bit of foundational support, and I'm not wealthy enough to do that myself. So we really rely on humanist members. Absolutely. Yeah.
Of course, once you've got a hotline, you can start advertising it, can't you? You can start advertising a hotline,
I'll tell you what, David, we're not going to need to advertise anything. People are so desperate for something like this, they will advertise it themselves. Yeah, it'll be I guarantee you, as soon as the hotline goes up, it'll be all over the internet in the groups the secret groups that exist everywhere. It's the people have been wanting this for years.
So there are secret groups of apostates, are there?
Oh, all over the world, yeah. I was visiting Sri Lanka on holiday, and I met 3 apostates, and they happened to have a secret ex-Muslim group there. And it was just cool. It was like 5 of us. They all hang out secretly. They're worried about Sri Lanka because it's becoming more and more conservative. And also it's anti-Muslim as well. There's a lot of anti-Muslim issues in Sri Lanka at the moment. And it was great. And one of them ended up coming out, and we did a video where one of them was mosaic face, like we hid his face, and the other one was out. And that got a lot of attention, and he leveraged that to have a slightly wider presence. So they're everywhere. They're everywhere. One of
the wonderful things about humanism is that we're not anti any religion particularly, and that's an enormous strength, actually. I think.
Yeah.
So many religions are anti one religion or anti somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, humanists are sort of just like we just like to do things properly, I guess, and in a way that requires self-reflection and thought.
You mentioned several times during the earlier in this conversation about school speakers. School speakers are trained to be school speakers. Do you have any representatives from Faith to the Faithless speaks to them?
Absolutely. The part of the training includes apostasy nowadays. So one of the interesting things Humanists UK did in the last few years is Faithless is one of the programs. It then started moving some of that experience we have over to like pastoral support, even maybe celebrants and things like that. We haven't really had a apostate marriage yet, I think, a humanist marriage, so we haven't had to have that yet. But
what was the first time?
Yeah, there's always a first time. I'm sure I can organize it. But the school speakers, for sure, we often have an apostate within a group of 3 speakers. So or they'll be trained in apostasy, because school speakers are very engaged, right? So they're always interested, and I think in the training we do that. You'd have to talk closer to the person who runs that, but I'm pretty confident that it's got a apostate element to it. Yeah.
Okay, I probably will do that. I'll probably pursue that. Okay, well, I think we've covered almost everything I can think of. Is there anything you'd like to add to this, bearing in mind that you're reaching about 3,000 people here through this, this medium?
Yeah, I mean, I think I often get these really lovely humanist people come to me and say, what can we do to help? Like they hold my hands. They're like, they really hold my hands and say, thank you so much. Like I've listened to you and other people, and how can we really help? And if I'm going to be super honest, and this is an outsider, this is as someone who's not paid by Faith to Faithless. I have no, there's a few things. One is resourcing. Like I have a job, I have a career now. I can slowly start to resource it a little bit. Humanists sometimes are well resourced, and I think that really helps. And really benefited from humanist members donating. So that's really, really important, because apostates in this country, in the UK, sorry, are quite poor. So they can't afford to give money to Faithless. We can't do that. We've tried. There's no money. There's no money at all. Actually, ex-Muslims in America are different. They raise quite good money for the ex-Muslim organizations, because the minorities in the US are well funded. In the end, they do the doctors, lawyers, etc. In the UK, it's very different. If you're ex-Jehovah's Witness, you're homeless. If you're ex-Muslim, you're from a low income, I think, minority family or whatever it is. If you're evangelical Christian, you might be from a cult, and so you're white, but you're earning not very well. So we've always had resource problems. I think if this is a real thing, is that, can we get more resourcing? The second thing that's really important is, like I said, making every humanist group in the country apostate friendly. Like, I really believe in that. And that means reaching out to Humanists UK. Can we get a speaker in? Like, I'm doing this conversation, but I used to go around the country speaking at tiny humanists.
I've seen you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, at Farnham.
Exactly. And now I have no time for that, but we have other speakers, right? So let's get more people out there, because when apostates come, even if there's only 3 people in that room, or 7 or 10, it doesn't matter. That's 3 or 4 people who now have a connection and are trained, right? The third thing is, our training program is it's really broad now. A lot of humanists happen to have professional backgrounds, or they used to have professional backgrounds. So think about your school, think about your hospital, think about this and that, and think about if you can get one of the training programs in. Right. And it's a fantastic program. The Metropolitan Police have done it multiple times. The MOD has done it multiple times. So it's not a small program in the sense that it's got good reach. So those are the 3 things I would say are, like, cutting through the crap, the most important things for Humanists UK and Faithless to continue to grow their work. And it's what humanists can provide that other people really can't. Like Apostle, we can't do that ourselves. We're just not in that space, if that makes sense. We don't have that experience.
How do we get in touch with those other people? Because I just have a feeling that you're under an awful lot of pressure. I mean, I've got in touch with you and asked you to speak, but you've just said that there are several other people. How do we get in touch with them?
Oh, Humanists UK. So the great thing is everything goes through Humanists UK. In fact, if I get onto my emails, I can even get you the best email for someone, which is Greg at the moment. Greg, Greg at humanists.uk. He's the person who's joined us. The other person used to be Terry. She's fantastic, ex-Jehovah's Witness, but she's become very busy recently because of her, she's had a child. So I would say Greg at humanists.uk is your best bet.
Now, you've just sent this out to 3,000 people. You know that, don't you?
Great.
Greg could be a very busy boy.
Greg, I'm sure that's what Greg wants. So it's all good. He's put calls out for volunteers already. So, this is exactly it. So Greg is Greg is the lighthouse for moving people into different parts of Humanists UK or Faithless, depending on what they want. So, if someone wanted to donate, then Greg can connect you to that. If you want to be a school speaker, you can do that. If they wanted to get us training one of their organizations or schools or whatever, Greg can organize that. So he's that person, Greg at humanists.uk. Yeah.
Greg at humanists.uk, just for our readers.
Yeah.
That's great. Imtiaz, it's been an absolute pleasure, a joy, in fact.
Thank you. Fantastic questions. Yeah, thank you very much.
It's been quite an eye-opener for me, yes. I mean, hearing about that 14-year-old girl.
Yeah. And the challenge is, we often don't know what happens to people because they disappear, right? Like, I have no idea if that girl ended up happy or not happy. We don't, like I said, we don't engage with people under 18 unless we send them out to other charities. I know in her case, we sent her to another charity, and I think that was better. So we can only hope that went well. But this is what we need to do 10,000 times. We need to do a lot more, right?
Would be nice to know. How many people have actually been in touch with you? I mean, I shouldn't be saying this because we finished the interview. I can't even count. I think Humanists UK have a log of how many people they help in a year. It's in their reports, annual reports, but I can't even count. It's not even possible. I can tell you that our YouTube videos have millions of views, and they're legitimate views. You can look at the comments and you can see people talking and coming out on the comment section saying, I've never told anyone, but I'm an ex-Muslim, that kind of stuff. You can go on Faith to Faithless YouTube and see all of these things.
they're out there.
Well, I think you're doing brilliant work. And Imtiaz, thank you. And thank you to everyone in Faith to the Faithless. It's just a fantastic job
the readership. I think this is I'll definitely listen to it, and I'll subscribe to it.
Brilliant. I'll put your name down for that.
That'd be great.
You're already a subscriber, Imtiaz. I've already got you down.
Great, fantastic. Okay, then. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye.
Humanistically Speaking is a volunteer-run online publication slotting in the gap between national humanist glossy magazines and Humanist UK's newsletter. We aim to create a platform that can bring humanist groups and individual humanists together, of course, but also to allow non-humanists to join in the debate. We want to explore topics of interest that any freethinker will be concerned about and offer informative, factual articles that encourage people to reflect upon, explore, question, and share ideas. We are in an exciting marketplace of ideas, and it is important that humanists from all stables of opinion have a voice. Humanistically Speaking is unique in offering this. Our remit is constantly developing, and by the start of our second year, we grew from a bi-monthly to a regular monthly issue. We've also expanded from email communication only to launching our own website and created our first values publication, From Atheism to Humanism. All of this has been made possible through your donations and your goodwill, and we're deeply grateful to those supporters among you who have donated already. But this is just the beginning. Our aim is a bold one. In addition to offering our support to National Secular Society and Humanist UK's campaign objectives, we want to share the humanist idea with everyone in society. Naturally, we want to celebrate rational thinking, open inquiry, compassion, fairness and justice, but we want to balance these good things with enjoyment and having fun, a sense of comradeship, and the thrill of just being alive. But to go further, we need financial security, and we're asking you to help us. If you approve of what we're doing, please join us on our journey towards the foundation of a national humanist magazine that lends voice to every rational and respectful opinion. We want to explain and celebrate what humanism is and share humanist ideas that we believe can do so much to improve the way we all live. You can help us to achieve these aims by setting up a standing order of £4 a month or whatever you can afford to Humanistically Speaking, or if you're not able to do that, think about giving us a kickstart boost by donating a one-off lump sum of perhaps £20. Our bank details are at the bottom of this screen, but if you prefer, please click on the link below that will take you straight to the appropriate place on our Humanistically Speaking website and follow the guidance given. Every donation will be acknowledged with a message of thanks from us. One last thing before you go, do spread the word with your friends, because Humanistically Speaking is there for everyone. There are also many potential humanists out there who already share our values and yet don't know we exist. There are also humanists who don't have a group nearby and who might be feeling like a lone voice in their communities. We would like to serve them also and play our part in breaking down any sense of isolation. We're doing all we can by committing our time and energy. Please help us with your goodwill and donations and join us on this journey. Thank you.